How much traffic can you afford to lose before it hits your current online display advertising income?
Some of our very highly trafficked areas, such as the home page and some of the story pages, will remain free. So I think we're not expecting to lose huge amounts of traffic. We could certainly afford to lose some traffic and still maintain our advertising revenue. As I also talked about, the audience that we'll now be delivering will be highly engaged, we'll know more about them, and we think that's very attractive to advertisers. And I think the experience from both the Times in London and the Wall Street Journal is that advertisers find the subscription environment very attractive.
Now, one example you've used is the UK, where it's a very different online market. It's a lot harder in the UK for an online publisher to make money. Does that make the decision for you more difficult because you do make some money from online, which just wasn't happening for the Times in the UK?
I think the UK environment definitely influenced the Times' decision to go 100% subscription. You're right, advertising yields in the digital environment in the UK are much, much lower than here. So we absolutely think it's important to keep our advertising revenue and continue to grow that very, very quickly and very rapidly, which was part of the influence of our decision to go to the freemium model.
One of the things you said in the presentation was that it'll be up to individual section editors what to put in the wall and what to put in front. Now, some journalists have quite big egos and want most people to see their content. Surely they're going to want their best stuff to be seen by as many people as possible.
There'll be general guidelines about what is a sort of story that should be part of our subscription site and driving overall value, and there'll be guidelines about what should be free. At the end of the day, what we're trying to do is come up with the best commercial model to drive revenue and therefore profits into our newspaper business so we can keep investing in journalism. And I think the journalists understand that.
Now, I don't know if you're a Sun Tzu's Art of War type of guy. One of the things he says is do whatever your enemies don't want you to do. Now, when it comes to your media section, your online media section for The Australian, I would consider myself a competitor to that. I think it's really come on, in the last year or two, particularly in the last few months. It's something you have to look at every day rather than just on a Monday. I'm delighted you're going to stick it behind a paywall.
We're going to stick some of it behind a paywall. We'll make sure that plenty of people know what's there and plenty of people go to that site, and it will help us grow our overall profits. Whether it helps you a little bit on the way through because you might get a little bit more traffic 1 or 2 days, that's fine. And for your business, that might be all right because a bit of advertising revenue probably covers you're up to 9 staff now, Tim? It's getting a bit expensive. But for us, we need to think about investing for the long term, and that means coming up with dual revenue streams. And as we make more money, we'll make sure we nick any of your good journalists and keep marketing against you and compete.
Now, one of the comparisons, I guess, with pay TV is when a show launches here on pay TV, its first audience may only be 30 or 40,000 rather than the 1.5 million that you may get for free TV. Is there an issue that you lose relevance? You have a smaller, more engaged audience, sure, but if you're not reaching the same numbers, do you become less important?
I think the experience of The Australian has proved that that's not the case. The Australian does not have Monday to Friday the biggest circulation. It's not the biggest circulation newspaper in the country, but it clearly, in terms of the newspaper that politicians read first every morning, and more most business people, it is very, very influential. Having said that, that's again part of why we want the freemium model. We do want to make sure that we think it's an opportunity for The Australian to grow its audience to be much bigger because we're accessing many more people. So that's why we are looking at the freemium model. One
of the points you touched on is that the subscription will be no hassles. I know of very, very few subscriber experiences where there are no hassles. How confident are you that you can actually deliver that?
Pretty confident. We're in testing at the moment of our subscription system. And the reason it's taken us a while to get to where we are is that we've had to build new publishing systems, new subscription systems, integrate those systems into our older print subscription systems across a range of newspapers. So it's been quite a complicated and difficult and intricate technical build. So the testing's going very well so far, I'm reasonably confident that it'll work very well. It's an important part of being customer focused and having a customer proposition. You have to make that as simple as possible. If you make it too hard for people to subscribe, they won't.
Hi Richard, I'm Caroline Overington. I'm a reporter with the Australian newspaper. You probably know that I'm an avid reader of the Daily Broadsheet, but like many people also of some of the less salubrious publications. One of the things I wanted to see more than anything in the world this year was the first pictures of Shane Warne locking lips with Liz Hurley. News of the World had that photograph and they had it first. They put it behind a paywall and within seconds it was available on free sites. I'm interested to know what you're going to do about the fact that material can be taken from behind a paywall and put in locations such as AAP and our friends at the taxpayer-funded ABC.
It's a fact of life that things like that are going to happen. And in some cases, you may want them to happen. If you've got that story first, you want your customers to know you've got it first, but then you want the rest of the world to know you had it first. And I think it's a case of you're never going to stop that happen, and you've got to just make sure that your overall product proposition doesn't just rely, for example, on one photo, that it actually goes much deeper into what you're producing, and that your value proposition makes it worth people subscribing. But you're never going to stop that sort of thing happening.
Hi there, it's Mike Wilson from Naked Communications. I was interested in your assertion that consumers are more receptive to advertising on the digital platforms. What I'm interested to know is, are you currently working with or intending to work with technology solutions that allow individuals to be served with advertising based on their individual profile information, as opposed to the more traditional broadcast model where you're just serving ads and hoping they're appropriate to the broad mass of people that are subscribing?
So behavioural targeting.
Well, sorry, we do have behavioural targeting. We'll make that more sophisticated. Moving it to the individual level is not something we're working on at the moment. But behavioural targeting is absolutely, and because we'll know more about our subscribers, that becomes a much more effective way of advertising as well.
How are things going to look in 10 years' time?
Well, from the Australian's perspective, in 10 years' time, we will have I'm speaking confidently here, we'll have a large subscriber base that will be accessing our product across whatever device they want to from time to time. I believe in 10 years' time, a large number of those people will still be reading the newspaper, but a large number will also be subscribing to our digital services. Our digital services will have a lot more video, they'll have a lot more interactivity, they will have a lot more community-type, loyalty-type programs in it. And I think of our print subscribers, I think the weekend Australian will have grown its circulation, because I think for people who have got a bit of time, the printed product is still a very, very, very popular way of consuming media. I'm guessing in 10 years' time our weekday circulation will be lower than it is today, and that'll be more than made up for by our digital circulation, and we will have completely solved how to sell advertising across print, tablet and digital by then.
That's where we have to leave it. Please thank Richard.
Thank you.